Welcome to the Active Marketer Podcast, where we talk about how to design, automate, and scale your business to the next level using sales and marketing automation. You can find out all the tips, tactics, and techniques you need to get more customers and sell more stuff over at theactivemarketer.com. Now, here's your host, Barry Moore.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Active Marketer Podcast. I'm your host, Barry Moore. And in this episode, we are going to take a break from our interview format that we've done for the last 3 episodes, and we're going to start introducing some short, sharp, actionable tips that you can take away and implement straight away into your business. But before that, we're going to get on to some events and some news. At the time of recording, next week, I'll be down in Sydney for the Superfast Business Live event in Manly on March 5th and 6th. If you're in the area, you want to have a chat about marketing automation, by all means, stop by, grab me or shoot me an email, and we can have a chat. Before we get into the main topic for this week, this is going to be the shameless social proof segment of the podcast. We've got some reviews I'd like to read out over on iTunes. 5-star review from Kate Galley in Australia that she says, "Great first show. I really enjoyed the Zero Fluff interview with James Schramko. Keep up the fab work, Barry." Another 5-star review from Atomic Molecule who says, "Actionable, specific, and extremely valuable. Just listen to the interview with James Schramko. Barry really does come out swinging with the first episode, which is extremely specific and actionable. Looking forward to great things. Thanks, Barry. Keep up the great work." Well, thank you very much for taking the time to leave a review. We really love it, and it helps drive our ranking ups in iTunes so that more and more people can find this information and start putting it to work in their business as well. So as I said, we're going to have a different format this week, which is all going to be about some tip that you can take away and implement in your business straight away. So this week we're going to talk about a feature in ActiveCampaign that is a recent feature, is a little bit overlooked, I think, by most people, but really, really powerful. It does take a bit of getting used to on how it's structured, so that's what we're going to talk about this week. We're going to talk about the CRM pipelines and deals in ActiveCampaign. All right, in this week's episode, we are going to talk about CRM pipelines and deals inside ActiveCampaign, all the components of that part of the system that you need to know about, and how you can go away and implement a pipeline in your business straight away. So ActiveCampaign introduced this feature probably about 6 months ago. I think it seems to be overlooked by a lot of people who are using the system, mainly because I think it can be a bit confusing to start if you've never used sales pipelines before. So we're going to talk about the elements of a sales pipeline, how they work, and what you need to know to have it make sense in your head so that you can start using it straight away. It really is a very flexible feature, and it is a fantastic thing to do. It really is only limited by your imagination. There's the typical kind of sales process that you can go through, but you can also use it to automate internal processes within your business as well. So don't forget, this is marketing automation, which means you can automate internal parts of your workflow, like contacting salespeople or following up with customers in person or via the phone. All that can be automated in the system. So let's talk about pipelines. Pipelines basically are a process that takes you from A to B. So let's take the example of, say, a website business, for example, and a sales process for converting someone into a buyer of your website service. So that process typically has a number of steps. So the customer might fill out a form on your website to inquire about getting a new website for themselves. So their details will end up somewhere once they filled out the form. That might trigger you to go ahead and contact them back to set up a time to discuss their requirements. After that requirements work has been done, you'll want to create a proposal. Then you might send that proposal back to them, and then you might give them a few days to go through the proposal, then follow them up and with the aim of converting them to a sale. Once they're converted to a sale, or they say no, once they say yes or no, that's the end of the pipeline. So it starts with inquiry, and it goes through a number of stages, and ends with either a yes or no at the end once you've done the follow-up work. And that follow-up might take a couple of times. You might not just be one follow-up, might be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but at the end, at some point, they're either going to say yes or they're going to say no. And that's kind of where the pipeline ends. So the way that you set up these pipelines in ActiveCampaign is a pipeline is made up of a number of stages, as we just said. So what you need to do is build a new pipeline And then in that pipeline, you want to think about all the different stages in the pipeline. So for example, in this case, there'll be the inquiry stage where someone's submitted an inquiry. So that's the first stage of the pipeline. So you create a new stage and you'd call it inquiry. Then the second stage might be schedule follow-up. So you've followed them up and you've scheduled a call with them, say, next Tuesday at 9 o'clock, we're going to have a call. So they've moved out of that inquiry stage into the next stage of the process, which is the call's been scheduled. Then from there, once the call's been made, they might move into another stage of the pipeline, which is creating proposal. So once you've gathered their requirements and you have enough information to go back to them with a proposal, you still have to type that up, get it back to them. You have to create the proposal before you can mail it out. So the next stage might be create proposal. So then from create proposal, you might have another stage, which is the proposal's been sent, and they might be sitting in that stage for a few days. And then the final stage might be follow-up. And those few stages would be the length of your pipeline. So you'd follow them up eventually and they say yes or no. That's the end of the pipeline. So you can go in ActiveCampaign, go to deals, set up a pipeline, and just add however many stages you need to add. You can then drag those stages left to right to make sure they're ordered in the proper sequence. And now that basically becomes an empty pipeline that's all ready to use. It's just waiting for people to get into it. And the way that people get into it is by creating a deal. And a deal is associated with a particular contact. So let's say Bob's filled out a web form to express an interest in creating a new website. So we would use an automation within ActiveCampaign that's fired on the trigger of Bob submitting a form. So Bob submitted the form. That fires an automation that creates a new deal in the inquiry stage of the pipeline. So there's three elements involved in any particular sales CRM pipeline. There's the deal itself, which is associated with a contact, in this case, Bob. Then there's the stage in the pipeline, and then there's the overall pipeline. So those are the three key components: pipeline, stage, deal. Now, the cool thing about the deals is they're associated with a contact, in this case, Bob. He's expressed an inquiry form. He's filled out an inquiry form. The system's automatically dumped him into the inquiry stage of our website sales pipeline. And when we put him into that inquiry stage, we can also put a dollar value against that deal. So if our typical website sale is, say, $4,000, for example, we can create a new deal for Bob with a value of $4,000 and put it into the inquiry stage. What that allows you to do is you can go back to ActiveCampaign, go to the deals page in ActiveCampaign, and you can look at the first stage of that pipeline, and you can see how many contacts are sitting in that inquiry stage. And you can also see all the dollar values associated with those deals. So if there's 5 people sitting in that inquiry stage with an average value of $4,000, there's $20,000 sitting in that inquiry stage of the pipeline waiting for you to follow up. So you get an immediate view of how much money's out there waiting to be won. And then to move them between stages, that can either happen as part of some sort of automation. So to get them into the first stage, that was an automation. They filled out a form. We triggered an automation based around the user submits form trigger. The first step in the automation was to create a deal and to put it into the inquiry stage of our website sales pipeline. So that all happened automatically just based on the fact that they've filled out the form. To move them into the next stage of the pipeline, which is schedule a call, that might be done manually. So in that first automation that puts them into the inquiry stage, one of the steps in that automation might be to email our sales staff to let them know a new inquiry is waiting to be followed up. They go into ActiveCampaign, they open up that Bob's contact record, they get his phone number, they call him up, and they schedule a call for tomorrow at 9 o'clock. They can note that on the deal record, on Bob's record. So if anybody else goes in there, they can see that Bob's got a call scheduled at 9 o'clock. Then they can just manually drag that deal from one stage to the next. So they can drag that deal out of the inquiry stage of the pipeline and into the call scheduled stage of the pipeline. So you can move deals either programmatically with an automation, or you can just drag and drop them to the next stage. You can also open up a contact record. So you can open up Bob's contact record. In the upper right corner of that deal record will be what stage of the pipeline it is, and it's just a drop-down menu. You can pop open that drop-down menu and just move them to the next stage or the next stage or the next stage. Also on your Active Campaign dashboard, you can have a pipeline widget there to see all your pipelines. You can also see all the outstanding tasks associated with the deals. So if you open up that deal associated with Bob and his website inquiry, you can see when he submitted that form. You can see that one of the sales staff has scheduled a call with him for tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And you might create a reminder in there to follow up tomorrow at 5 o'clock with your sales staff to see what the result of that call was. So all those reminders and follow-up tasks that are associated with a deal can be on your Active Campaign dashboard as well. It will tell you that, hey, there's 5 tasks today, one's overdue. You need to go in there and take care of it. So that's a quick overview of CRM pipelines and deals inside Active Campaign. I wanted to basically break it down so you know how it all works and how it all fits together. I have a complete walkthrough on the blog over at theactivemarketer.com. So if you head over to the show notes for this episode over at theactivemarketer.com/pipelines, you'll see a full breakdown of the notes here and also a link to that full walkthrough on how you can set up your own CRM pipelines inside of Active Campaign. So I hope that explains it. I hope that clears it up. You've got 3 elements there. You've got the pipeline as a whole. That pipeline will have multiple stages associated with it. And then inside of each of those stages will be a deal that has a monetary value or can have a monetary value and is attached to a particular contact. So deals live inside a stage, which lives inside a pipeline. And then when you get to the end of your pipeline and you followed up Bob, and Bob said yes or no, you can open up that deal again in Active Campaign. In the upper right corner, there'll be a one lost tab. So you can just click on one and you can keep track of how many of those deals you've won and how many of those deals you've lost. And potentially you can go back and follow up all those people whose deals have been lost, and you can get feedback from them about why they didn't buy and try and increase your conversion rate and tweak your sales process to make it more relevant. So I hope that helps. Head over to theactivemarketer.com/pipelines for a complete breakdown on how you do this. And I would love to hear, if you scroll down to the bottom to the comment section, I'd love to hear how you're using pipelines in your business as well. So leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what you're doing with the CRM and pipeline feature inside Active Campaign. All right, CRM pipelines, very powerful feature inside Active Campaign. And it's not just for those kind of sales inquiry. Any process you have inside your business that you'd like to automate, you can set up a pipeline to do that. It's a very cool feature and very worth you checking out. Again, head over to the show notes and you can get a complete walkthrough on how that works. We'd also love it if you can share this out. So if you find this information useful in this podcast, by all means, please share it with people. We are a brand new podcast and we're trying to build awareness. We can really use your help. So share it with somebody who might get something out of it, or you can head over to iTunes and leave us a review and a rating, and we'll read it out on a future show. So see you next week, back with another really great interview on the Active Marketer podcast. See you next time, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Active Marketer podcast. You can find the show notes and all the latest marketing automation news over at theactivemarketer.com.